Howie Roseman throw water on the A.J. Brown trade rumor fire? We're going to talk about it here on Fan Arch. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest. I'm your host, Cory Nidoh. Well, there seems to always be a conversation, no matter where we are in the offseason, regarding A.J. Brown and if he will be traded and not be part of the Eagles in 2026. Now, it's happening in the NFL Combine, and we heard both Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni say on Tuesday that they believe A.J. Brown wants to be on the team. They want A.J. Brown on the team, but they can't guarantee his return. Now, obviously, that got legs, and it took off, and the media ran with it, and they're saying, oh, well, Nick Sirianni can't confirm that his best wide receiver is returning. He's going to be traded. Well, no, that's not necessarily true at all. Howie Roseman is doing what any good general manager will do, and that is entertain and listen to offers for any and all players. It makes sense because at the end of the day, his job is to make the best decision for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I don't think they trade A.J. Brown. I'm not saying it's 100% certain that he stays with the Eagles, but there's three options that I think, really two options I think, where the Eagles would end up having to move him. And it's one, Howie Roseman gets absolutely blown away by a trade package from a needy team who needs a wide receiver one, like a Buffalo Bills or New England Patriots. Or two, A.J. Brown ultimately goes to the front office and says, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. Then you obviously have to trade the player. But I just think that A.J. Brown wants to be with the Eagles. I think that he's excited about the changes. I think that he is going to possibly enjoy this new offense, although we don't really know what it's going to look like. But it's certainly going to look different with Sean Mannion. Now, I thought Howie Roseman cleared the air pretty well yesterday on Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio. He basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the outside perception of the relationship between A.J. Brown and the team is a lot different than how Howie Roseman and the front office view it internally and how they feel about A.J. Brown. And that is what I've been saying on this show, and when people reach out to me, that the media is making this a much larger deal than it is. Was A.J. Brown frustrated? Absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not true. He was most definitely frustrated with how the offense was going. But I believe it just continued to snowball because he was made into a villain because he was the one that called out the offense publicly, saying that we aren't playing well enough and that we have to pick up the slack. Yes, I get it. People don't like wide receivers that are drama kings. They find drama. Are the cryptic posts on social media unnecessary? Sure. Did he let his frustration trickle into his play? Absolutely. He can't do that. However, what he said was accurate. The offense cannot flip a switch and turn it on in the playoffs. And they didn't do it. They had a scoreless half, something that they could not afford to do, but something that they've done almost on a weekly basis in the playoff game against a very banged up Niners team and lost at home. So where was A.J. Brown wrong in saying and being critical of the offense? So I think it was just really telling what Howie Roseman said. You could go find it. I did retweet it on my X account at Cory_Nidoh. It's about a 50-second clip. And Howie Roseman essentially says that they feel differently about the player than what the outside thinks they feel like. He mentioned how A.J. Brown was voted as a team captain. That's not by Howie Roseman. That's not by Nick Sirianni. That's by his teammates. All this talk about he's not a good teammate, he's fractured in the locker room, that's not true. The players love him. I've seen it firsthand in the locker room. There's no ill will towards A.J. Brown. So I think that, again, there's always going to be a trade rumor. There's always going to be a trade talk regarding A.J. Brown and the Eagles until he suits up for training camp, until he plays in week 1 of next season. But I do think what Howie Roseman said was quite telling and kind of extinguished some of the flames that may have been fanning out in regards to the A.J. Brown trade discussion. Now, moving on to the next side of the football, interesting contract projection that came out courtesy of The Athletic. Daniel Popper predicted that Nakobe Dean's next contract will be for 4 years, $40 million, so an easy $10 million a year. My question to you is, would you bring Nakobe Dean back for $10 million a year at 4 years? Now, I've said that I don't think they will bring Nakobe Dean back just because of a numbers perspective. I think that they want Jahad Campbell, to take over. We saw what Campbell did as a rookie, and then what he did filling in for Dean before Nakobe came back. And then Campbell lost playing time because Nakobe Dean was really good. I'm not saying anything bad against Nakobe Dean. I mean, when he returned, he definitely provided a physicality and a tenacity on this defense that was lacking during his absence. In 10 games and 8 starts, he had 4 sacks, racked up 55 tackles, had 7 for a loss, 6 QB hits. I mean, it's pretty good production for a guy who essentially didn't come back until midway through the season. But I don't know if the Eagles will pay him $10 million a year to come back. Now, it's a big piece in the locker room that they will miss. He is one of the vocal leaders on that defense, both on the field and in the locker room. After every game I was there covering the Eagles, we all gravitated towards Nakobe Dean to get his thoughts after a win or a loss. And he is the leader of the Philadelphia Georgia Bulldogs, if you will. So it's definitely going to be a key voice that will be missed in the locker room. But I just think that with Jahad Campbell waiting in the wings, they are going to want to have him be the starter. And Nakobe Dean may have to take less than that, maybe $7 million, $8 million a year. Who knows what his market's going to look like. Again, he has dealt with injuries. There are some rumors that maybe he finds his way to Dallas. Obviously with the connection there with the new DC. And, we'll see what happens. But I don't think the Eagles will sign Dean for that money for 4 years, $10 million a year. Now, it's not that much. Maybe a 2-year deal, maybe even a 3-year deal, but I think 4 is going to be too long for Howie Roseman's liking. Speaking of some draft choices, and with the draft coming up in April, and why Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni are in Indianapolis currently, it is for the NFL Combine, and that is where Howie Roseman has a chance to scout some of the top prospects in the NFL. Now, Howie Roseman has been phenomenal in the first 2 rounds of the drafts since 2021. If you look at the list, he has hit on every one, which has been pretty remarkable. Devontae Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Quinyon Mitchell, and Jahad Campbell are the first-round picks since 2021. Pretty darn good. Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Cooper DeJean, and Andrew Makuba are all second-round picks. And they are all projected to be starters next season. And most of them were starters at some point last season. Drew Makuba started as a rookie. Jahad Campbell started as a rookie. And then everybody else obviously was a key part on the offensive or defensive side of the football. So if Howie Roseman can keep his record up, if he can keep batting 1,000 essentially in the first and second rounds, I think they will be okay in this draft. Now, where do they go with that first-round pick, which is number 23 overall? That remains to be seen. I think that they are going to find an offensive lineman and just build through the trenches like they typically do. I know Landon Dickerson. I know Lane Johnson. I know Cam Jurgens. They're all coming back, obviously. but you need more depth on the offensive line. So I could see Howie Roseman going with an O lineman in the first round. Do they go wide receiver if they trade A.J. Brown? That's a potential. But I think, as I mentioned, if I stick with what I believe, and that is that A.J. Brown remains with the Eagles, then you're probably looking at a wide receiver later in the draft. Maybe round 2 if somebody drops, but probably a 3rd or 4th round pick maybe to help fill in and fight for a spot on the roster, with Darius Cooper possibly sliding in at wide receiver 3 moving forward. But Howie Roseman has had a great track record. I mean, that list is impressive. We've talked on this podcast before about the draft that he had 2 years ago with Mitchell, DeJean, and Jalix Hunt now, the first 3 picks of that draft, home run picks. So Howie Roseman will do his due diligence. You heard some coaches speak very highly of him and how he handles the roster and this time of year and the draft. Some GMs even joke saying that they're going to be cautious when they see their phone ring and it's Howie Roseman on the other end. And that's what you want if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, because Howie Roseman's got a tough decision coming up this year. They've got to pick and choose who they want to re-sign, who are they going to extend, and Howie Roseman made it pretty clear that they aren't going to look outside for the most part. They're going to try and extend some of their younger guys, maybe even a Cooper DeJean or Quinyon Mitchell before their rookie contract comes up, but they still have one more year until that happens. Jordan Davis looking for an extension, Jalen Carter looking for an extension. You got Jalix Hunt, Moro Ojomo. I mean, there's a lot of young talent on the defensive side that the Eagles may have to focus on the draft to go offense to kind of sway the pendulum in favor of the defense to be able to afford these upcoming contracts. So it will be a tough few weeks and months for Howie Roseman. I certainly don't envy him, but he is certainly the man capable of crunching the numbers and figuring out the best way to keep this core intact as their Super Bowl window remains open. So that would just about do it for this episode of Eagles Latest. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the NFL Combine, which officially gets underway today. We'll hear from players in interviews. We'll see some skills on the field. And we'll also start to hear reports of who the Eagles are meeting with in terms of players. But as always, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 300 subscribers here at Eagles Latest. It would be a big help if you tell your friends and family. And if you haven't subscribed already, just hit that button. It takes 2 seconds. Also, drop a comment and a like. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on how the Eagles should attack this offseason. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with more Eagles coverage right here on Eagles Latest.